Well, it's a day later, approximately 24 hours after Pitt's loss to Virginia, that I'm recording this here, Morning Pitt, the Wednesday edition of the Morning Pitt. It's about, we're recording this on Tuesday night, as we often do. And I waited till later in the day because as I thought about it throughout the day, I just kept thinking, like, what else is there to say? We covered a lot of ground on yesterday's Morning Pitt, which we recorded after the game on Monday night, talking about that game and talking about all the issues and talking about the resume and all this and that. And I really spent a good part of the day yesterday thinking, what else is there? I mean, we obviously found plenty to talk about. The message boards at Panther-Lair.com were buzzing. There was a lot of conversation going on, a lot of discussion, not too much arguing. Everybody's in sort of agreement that was pretty bad on Monday night, and one of the worst performances we've seen. As Jeff Cable said, it was one of the worst performances he's seen from a team he has coached. And I think we would all agree that was one of the worst performances we've seen from a team at the Peterson Event Center. Our guy Matt Steinbrink said that it was maybe one of the 3 worst performances he's seen from Pitt in the Peterson Event Center, which is saying something. Because the storied history of that building took a slow, long descent, starting somewhere around 2012 or so, with peaks and valleys, of course, but it's not what it was. And there have been some pretty miserable games there, some pretty bad performances and pretty big blowouts. And yet that one was right there near the top. So I really found myself wondering, what else is there to say? What else can we say and add to the conversation about that game? And the reality is there's not much more we can say about Pitt, Virginia. What we can talk about now, and what we will talk about now, and I'm sure we'll talk about it tonight on the live Panther-Lair show right here at 8:30. What we can talk about now is what happens next, where Pitt goes, how they try to bounce back and rebound from that game. Because, it does feel like an inflection point of sorts. Sorry, I hit that P sound pretty hard there. Between my voice slowly coming back and trying to moderate how we talk into the microphone here, I sometimes lose track of it a little bit. But that game on Monday night could very much be an inflection point, and maybe it will be an inflection point regardless of what the outcome is, or the upcoming outcomes over these final 9 ACC games. It could be a game that serves as a wake-up call. It could be a game that slaps this team in the face and says, hey, what the hell are you doing? What do you want to be this year? What do you want this season to be? You set out looking to prove something. You set out looking to leave no doubt about who you were and how good you were and how much you belonged in the NCAA tournament. That was your stated goals from the start. It was all everybody talked about all offseason, and rightfully so. Those should be your goals. That should be what you talk about all offseason. And so we've all been led to believe that you believe you are better than what you showed on Monday night. Well, then you're going to have to show it. So it could go that direction, and they could bounce back, and they could win games, and they could keep themselves around the bubble, and maybe even play themselves into the NCAA tournament bracket. I think, what was it yesterday? Joe Lunardi had them as among the first 4 out. They dropped 10 spots in the net ranking after that loss. Virginia climbed 20 spots in the net rankings after that win for the Cavaliers. But it could go the other way too. This could be the kind of loss that just completely deflates the team, takes all the wind out of their sails, and they never really recover. Even if they win a game out of the final 9 or win a couple games out of the final 9, they never really bounce back. They never really make anything out of this season, which seems so promising just a couple months ago, which seems so promising before the season ever started, to have taken a turn like this. It feels like we're at a real a before and after moment, a crossroads, whatever you want to call it. How do you respond to this now? Because it wasn't about how did you respond to the Wake Forest game? How did you respond to winning a couple of games in a row? How did you respond to the Clemson game in the Louisville or Florida State? How did you respond to getting beat up by Duke? None of those mattered as much as this one matters right now, because what they do going forward is going to directly determine what this season will become. Because if they lose at North Carolina, and actually I'm not going to put this all on the outcome at Carolina, but if they lose that game, who knows where the losing will stop. And everybody involved with this program is going to have to take a long, hard look at themselves. But if they can turn it the other way, if they can use this as motivation, if this can be a wake-up call, well, who knows? Maybe they can get back to something closer to where we thought they all were going to be and where we all thought they should be. So how can they do that? What do they need to do? What do they need to focus on this week? Jeff Capel said they'd be back at practice today. I wouldn't say he was joking on Monday night or in a good mood. He certainly wasn't in a good mood. I think he was trying like crazy to not lose his mind in the post-game press conference and just start ripping everyone and yelling and screaming about everything. He pretty much said as much during the press conference that he said he was trying to remain calm and not speak too much from his emotions. But he also said, excuse me for that, he sort of said that, yeah, when they get back to practice on Wednesday, he's not going to have any of those filters of calmness or not speaking out of emotion. I think the practice today, whenever they have it, is going to be a feisty one. And it should be a feisty one. There should be chairs thrown across the court. You know what I mean? Like, this should be the kind of practice where guys are really getting into it. I mean, that should be how you respond. If you go out and have a lazy practice today, you're in trouble. Because I don't know. I mean, you only get 31 games, right? Like, what more? Like, you only have a limited amount of these that you get to play. And if Monday night's game was not a wake-up call, did not slap you in the face and say, hey, quit screwing around and play basketball. I mean, if that didn't do it, then nothing will. But let's say that maybe it does. What are some of the things they can do? What do they need to focus on? What do they need to improve on? Where do they need to get better heading into this Carolina game and heading into the final 9 games of the season? Let's talk about what lies ahead and what Pitt needs to do right here on, what day is this? Wednesday. The Wednesday edition of the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right, Wednesday, Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You know what we always ask you to do, like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and that way you don't miss any of our exclusive Pitt video content, whether it's these daily Morning Pitt videos, our weekly live. Sorry, I had a big cough coming up. I could feel it. I got to find a way to adjust my speech patterns here because it's it's catching up with me. I'm getting better. You got to admit, I sound better today than I did on Monday. I hope I sound better today than I did on Monday. I feel better today than I felt on Monday, at least in terms of my voice. It was really bad on Saturday and Sunday, let me tell you, what you heard on Sunday or what you heard on Monday is what I sounded like on Sunday. It was bad. So what was I saying? Oh, yeah. Our daily Morning Pitt videos, our weekly live stream, we do it every Wednesday night at 8:30. We'll have that tonight. Me and Jim Hammett will get together and we'll hang out with you for an hour of, Pitt sports conversation. Hopefully you can tune in for that. That'd be a lot of fun. Those are always enjoyable. And then, press conferences, interviews, all those different things. We have it all right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right. There's been a lot of conversation on the message boards. I mean, there's always a lot of conversation on the message boards. Panther-Lair.com is the best place for Pitt fans to talk about Pitt sports. There have been a lot of topics that have risen to the top, so to speak, in the last few days. Primary topics of interest, things that have really gotten people talking, particularly after the loss at Wake Forest, but then really after Monday night's game. You've seen over the last 24 hours a lot of the same topics coming up. And I think when you look at what this team needs to do going forward, things that can be done, things Jeff Capel can do, it's hard to coach energy and effort. Some of that needs to come from the players. The players need to bring that themselves. But there are things Jeff Capel can do better. And I'm not going to get into X's and O's because I'm not the expert to talk about that. I mean, I know what I see. I am perplexed at times by what I see, as I'm sure you are, as I'm sure that people who know X's and O's really well are perplexed about what they see. But I'm not going to go to, it would be a waste of your time and mine for me to sit here and act like I can break down all the minute details of what they're doing on the court. I see what's happening and I see the final product and I see the outcome, right? What I could talk about though is a few things that, I think would probably benefit this team. And one is personnel. And now, if you've watched these podcasts, you read stuff I've written over the years. I mean, like literally like 2 decades of writing for Panther-Lair.com, doing these podcasts for I don't know how many years now, 5, 10, I don't know. You lose count. You've been doing it a long time when you don't really know off the top of your head when you started doing it. But one of my big things has always been that I'm sort of hesitant to question personnel decisions, largely because the coaches, I don't know if they know best, but they know more, right? Like they have more information available to them. Film breakdowns of the games, obviously all the practice time, all the time they spend around these guys in the film sessions, talking to them. I mean, like they have a pretty good idea, or they should have a wealth of information available that they can use to make decisions about who they play, how much they play them, and how they deploy them. And I always say this about football too, and I think it applies to basketball as well. And so I'm not going to sit here and say I know better than Jeff Capel and he should play this guy or he should play that guy. I don't. Okay? I'm not saying that the coaches are always right, but I'm saying they have a lot more information available, and they also have a lot more riding on it than I do. It's their jobs, right? That said, I think Capel needs to get over this fear of using the bench. I really do. I'm not going to sit here and say Jorge Diaz-Graham and Brandon Cummings and Papa Amadou Kanti and Amsal Delilich are going to win them the next 9 games. That they're going to go on a 9-game winning streak because of those, how many guys? 4 guys. I'm not going to sit here and say that because I don't necessarily think that that's true. I think that's overestimating the contributions those guys can make. But what I will say is that I think using them more can help. A common thought on the boards, and I'll credit our friend DT Pitt for this, is that this Pitt team doesn't necessarily, they're not great at any one thing, and I agree. They're good to pretty good to decent to bad at a lot of things, but they're not great at any one thing. The one thing I would say that this team can do well, and it's tough because it's not necessarily something you can control, it just sort of happens, is they can get hot. Individual guys can get hot. Jaylen Low can go off. Ishmael Leggett can go off. Damian Dunn had that game, Wake Forest, he went off. Brandon Cummings went off. We've seen Jorge Diaz-Graham get hot. We've seen Guillermo Diaz-Graham get hot. It's not something you can count on. It's not something you can plan for. It's not something you can, okay, this is going to be the game where Zach Austin goes nuts. Like you can't do that. But what you can do is give guys an opportunity to find out if it is their night. Because this is a streaky team. It's a team full of streaky players, streaky shooters, streaky scorers. And I think one of the challenges every night, one of the sort of the puzzles to solve is who's going to be that guy tonight. You hope that somebody is going to be that guy, but you try and figure it out. If you're only playing 6 guys, then you're limiting yourself to, well, it's only going to be, and really of like those 6 guys, Low, Leggett, Dunn, Austin, Guillermo, and Cam Corrin, you really have the possibility of maybe 3 of those guys getting hot. Like Zach Austin is never going to get the ball in his hands often enough to get hot. I think, and it's funny, as much as we talked about how he's made more 3-pointers than 2-pointers this year, I think the 2 times he actually touched the ball inside the arc in the Virginia game, where it was, not just on an offensive rebound or something, I think he committed turnovers both times. He's fast break, transition, offensive rebounds, broken plays, loose balls, those kinds of things, and threes. He shoots threes. So he's not really going to be that guy unless he gets hot from 3. And really the last couple of games, I mean, Wake Forest, he was 1 of 7. I think Virginia was 2 of 5 or something like that. I don't really feel like he's getting the opportunity. Although 7 shots is a pretty good opportunity. I mean, you never really know if that's going to happen. Guillermo is definitely not going to get enough shots to find out if he's hot in a given night. And Cam Corrin, look, for some reason the game plan on Monday night was let's feed the ball inside. And that didn't work. So that's not really a possibility. I mean, really, you're talking about like Low, Leggett, Dunn. Can one of these guys get hot? Well, you probably should expand that group. when you're trying to find out who's going to have the hot hand on any one given night, you should expand that group and include Brandon Cummings, include Jorge Diaz-Graham, include Papa Amadou Kanti. Get some minutes for Amsal Delilich. I know they're concerned about what these guys give up on defense. I think that's the primary concern, particularly for Cummings, Jorge, and Delilich. But, like, maybe they'll get hot. Like the 17-0 scoring run that Virginia had, obviously, Pitt played bad defense, gave up 17 points. They also had the O on that side where they didn't score at all. So maybe you try and find the hot hand and get a guy going and find out who's going to be the streaky shooter that night. I think there's enough offensive talent on this team that they should be able to have somebody get hot in almost every game. You got to find out who that is. Stop being scared of the depth. Use it. Find out. Maybe it's Cummings' night. Maybe it's Jorge's night. Maybe Amsal, who has probably lost his shot at being ACC Player of the Year, unfortunately. And I don't really know if you can get, if 9 games is enough to, earn ACC Newcomer of the Year, Rookie of the Year, whatever they call it. But maybe he could get hot. I like, Jeff Capel said Monday night, well, all options are on the table. Nothing's off the table. Well, I mean, like, show that, prove it. Leave no doubt that there's nothing on, that everything is on the table. Leave no doubt that everything is on the table by actually using everything. And I think it was very notable that they finished the first half with Cummings, Jorge, and Papa Amadou Kanti on the court. And it was even more notable when they came out to start the second half, Jorge and Papa Kanti were out there again. Because it's one thing to finish the first half. It's another altogether to start the second half when Jeff Capel always goes with his starting lineup to open the second half. Always. So to take Cam Corrin and Damian Dunn out of that group, sorry, I'm getting too riled up here. But to take Cam Corrin and Damian Dunn out of that starting group to open the second half, that sends a message. It should send a message. And it should be something Capel is willing to do again. Find the hot hand. Some other things, the Jaylen Low thing. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about Jaylen Low. He's shooting, sub 40% from the field right now. He's taken more shots than anybody else on the team, but he has not made more shots than anybody else on the team. He's taken more three-pointers than anybody else on the team, but he's not made more three-pointers than anybody else on the team. Still average, still has 122 assists, which is a really good number. Still right around 2-1, slightly under 2-1 on assists to turnover. We could probably do a whole episode about Low. And I'm not advocating benching Jaylen Low. But I think you need to explore options, and I'm sure Jeff Capel is working with Jaylen Low. I'm sure he's having ongoing conversations with Jaylen Low. He's got to help Low figure out how to help the team win. And there's a lot of things that Jaylen Low does that do help Pitt win and have a chance to win. But there's also way too many things that Jaylen Low does that don't necessarily help the cause. And Jeff Capel, this is where he needs to be a good coach, to be a great coach, to help Low get out of whatever he's in right now and whatever he's been in and become the guy that they expected him to be, and more importantly, that they need him to be. A lot of our expectations, certainly mine, about what this team could be this year were based on my expectations for what Jaylen Low could be. And he hasn't been that. Not lately. And not consistently. So that's something that has to be improved. And I think, that's where Capel earns his money, right? Like, so, okay, maybe he's not the best X's and O's coach. Maybe he leaves something, maybe that's not his forte, Development, relationships, helping young players grow and become better players, become better, young men. That's what he's supposed to be good at. That's what he is good at. I believe that is what he is good at. He needs it now more than ever before. He's got to connect with Jaylen Low and get Low turned around and headed in the right direction for what Pitt needs him to be. So that might be the most important thing Jeff Capel can do this week is try to connect with Jaylen Low and see if he can positively affect that situation. And then beyond that, like I say, trust the depth. Find the hot hand. And don't limit yourself on the guys who could potentially be that. Man, this is going to be we'll see how long we can make it through the live show tonight. Maybe it'll be a short live show, so make sure you tune in to start at 8:30, because if I have to cough like this for an hour, it's not going to be fun for any of us. Most of all, and least of all, me. So make sure you tune in at 8:30 tonight to get the live stream, because who knows, we might only go 15 minutes, and then I'll be like, Jim, I'm done. I'm out of here. Jim can either carry it himself, or I'm just going to click end and we'll cut it off. But look, like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'd like to think that the content's good, even if it sounds bad, but, substance over style, right? Yeah, if we were concerned with style, I wouldn't wear hoodies every week or every day for this. But, hey, we got to be comfortable, right? All right, like and subscribe. Make sure you check out the website Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com to get all your Pitt sports coverage. And, I think that's about it. We'll have maybe some football talk tomorrow. And then, of course, we have the mailbag on Friday. So submit your questions on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I appreciate it. Hope you've had a good week so far. Enjoy your Wednesday. We'll talk to you tonight for the live stream at 8:30. And then we'll be back for another Morning Pitt tomorrow right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.